This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Out of the Ashes presents Missing Dad.
I might have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks if Pops wouldn't have pulled me back and said, yo.
Each episode is a thought-provoking interview with people across all walks of life to see how they were affected by missing key pieces in their relationship with their
I
dad.
told him as a youngster, he'll be the greatest man alive.
And now your hosts, Coley Harris and Amar Mountain.
All right, welcome to another episode of Missing Dad. I'll be your co-host, Coley Harris.
And I'm the other co-host, Amar Melton.
And we are fortunate today to have the OG with us, Orlando Freeman, as we are delving into our usual topic, talking about fatherhood and manhood. So welcome to have. Thank you for coming today, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, bro.
Once again, my name is Orlando Freeman, from Wilmington, Delaware, from the east side. Just finished completing 23 years in federal prison.
Wow.
55 years old, as you noticed, they call me the OG.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, just wasted far too much of my time incarcerated, But now that I'm older and mature, I have a different perspective on things, and I see things that's going on in the communities and things, and I just want to be a part of it, trying to make things a little better.
That's what's up.
Absolutely.
That's what's up. So, out of the ashes, we delve into the topics of fatherhood and the impacts of fathers on, the man and also on the child. So, what was the impact you would say that your father had on you in your life growing up?
Well, that's interesting because me and my father had an on and off relationship somewhat. My father was there a lot of times, but a lot of times he wasn't there. So it kind of left a little void there. And it's ironic that since I've been home, it seems like me and my father were a lot closer now, which is crazy. I mean, like, my father kisses me on the cheek now, and I kiss him on the cheek now.
Yeah.
And we never did that when I was young, so it just blows my mind. But I guess that's just the evolution of life and the evolution of people,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It was, I think for me, after doing time, I didn't do as much time as you did, but I still did a significant piece. And it was like probably in my 30s when me and my father really started connecting. And I don't know, as I look back on it now, and I think it's because I grew as a man and just started to see my father as a man. We had another brother. He said it well. Dr. Payne was in here a few weeks ago, and he said he's having a conversation with his father, and his father was like, "Yo, you got to cut me some slack." And I think that was the point for me, because it's like, here's my son. I'm out of his life for 14 years, right? And I wanted him to cut me some slack so that we could connect. But in order to do that, I had to do the same thing with my own father. For us to be able to build and connect.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about about your upbringing.
My mother worked for General Motors. My pop was an electrician for the Wilmington Housing Authority. I had a pretty good life. I can't complain. My mother gave me morals and values and things. It was just when I got a little older, I started feeling myself, as my mother would say, smelling yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say a little peer pressure. I ended up moving to New York City, and I got into the fast life of that. And I had a cousin who was out in the streets.
What part of New York, real quick?
In the Bronx and Harlem.
In the Bronx and
Yeah,
Harlem? Okay.
I actually stayed in Harlem most of the time.
Okay.
And I got caught up in that New York vibe, man. This is a different vibe than the Delaware vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And before I realized it, man, unfortunately, I ended up picking up a coke habit. And it led me to dropping out of college. And before I noticed, I was robbing banks. And it never stopped until I got caught.
Right.
Unfortunately, man. And when I sit back and I say, like, wow, how did I let my life go like that? But the reality is, if you don't protect yourself, it can be easily lost.
Right.
And that was the sad part for me. And that's the beauty of men like you and your son and many others who are trying to impact our community. I mean, there's a need, man, for help and assistance, even if it's just verbal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of young men and young women who don't have the guidance and the proper nurturing.
Right.
And maybe we can play a part in that.
Right. So let me ask you to go back. Tell me, what was the East Side like for you growing up? For those listening, East Side of Wilmington, Delaware, is one of if not the oldest communities in the state of Delaware. It's where, you know what I mean, the old Swedes settled at and whatnot. And now it's a predominantly African American community with, you know what I mean, a rich history and culture of itself. So, you know what I mean, tell me a little bit about growing up in the East Side.
Because most people don't realize that Howard High School really was the predominantly black school for most African Americans during the 60s and the 50s and things of that nature.
Yeah. If I can jump in, at one time, just to add, like as the brother said, it was the only African American high school in the state. I talked to some older folk and they talk about living downstate, like in Sussex County, and they would come up here to Wilmington and stay with families Monday through Friday. And Friday, when they got out of school, they would go back downstate and they would come back up Sunday.
Yeah, because they wanted to be a part of that experience, and that's just unfortunately the way it was. The East Side, really, it was unique because the East Side always had its East Side swag. And you had a great number of great athletes on the East Side. Clifford Brown, jazz man. They used to have a jazz club on 9th and Poplar Street back then. It was called the Baby Grand.
Okay.
And I remember my mother used to pick me up and put me to the windows, and I used to see the jazz people, you know, playing in there. And I was young. I didn't really know what jazz was or anything. But the East Side wasn't a lot of violence on the East Side at that time. People respected each other and knew each other. I mean, you couldn't throw a glass bottle down the street and not be reprimanded by somebody back in the day. And I think that's where we went wrong in society now, where the parents don't interact with each other, they don't know each other, and it's more like, don't speak to my son that way, where back when I was growing up, they tell you, yeah, if you see him doing something wrong, you reprimand him, and when he gets home, he's going to be reprimanded.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a change in the culture and a change in the times, and I think that's what's hurt us.
Right.
So you mentioned Delaware having a different vibe than New York, right? Paint a picture of what times was like in New York for you.
Man, I mean, like, I was hanging around with guys like Curtis Blow and them back in the day. He's an old rapper. Most of the youngsters don't know who he is, but Curtis Blow and things like that, the Get Fresh crew and things of that nature. Because my cousin, who was out in the streets at the time, knew a lot of these guys, and he dealt, unfortunately, drugs with a lot of these guys also.
Okay.
So I was coming from Delaware. I was really just caught up because, like I said, it was just a different vibe, a different speed. And you're dealing with millions of people compared to what Delaware has. So that changes the concept and things of that nature. And it's just easy to get caught up. And then you don't want to be slow being in New York because then they look at you and you might be the prey.
Right.
So you got to really catch up. You got to fast forward your game plan and be with the swag of New York because they can smell it out of town.
Yep. How old were you during this time?
At that time, I was 18 years old. I just graduated from Christiana High School, and I was going to Bronx Community College, which is on University Avenue in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really young.
So when you started getting a taste of a different life, that New York, that fast-paced life, what was your communication like with your father during this time period?
It was off and on at best because, like I said, I was kind of like on my own.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you go to college. You can that's that first time that you really feel like you're on your own.
Right.
And your parents try to give you some space. You know what I mean? Even though from time to time you connect with them. So it didn't really grow, but I think my father looked at me a little different because I guess he respected the fact that I was on my own now.
Right. Right. So just looking at that, give us a little bit more. So let me ask you this: when did you become a father?
I became a father, thankfully, in 1996. My daughter was born. She was conceived in 1995. The year I was shot and paralyzed. I went to prison, and when I went in, her mother was pregnant, and my daughter was born in April of '96. And man, she's been the most beautiful thing in my life. And I just thank the Creator for allowing me to have that bond and connection with my daughter. And that's why we get along so good, Cooley, because we can relate.
Right.
Because, man, like, if you do the numbers of how many brothers and sisters who are incarcerated and the type of relationships they have with their children, it's kind of sad.
Right.
Because there are a lot of factors that play a part. One, basically, fathers not stepping up, even from behind the bars, of keeping the lines of communication open with their children.
Right.
And then you have that dynamic of the father and the mother relationship, because if it's not a good relationship, then sometimes, unfortunately, some of the women that keep the kids from the father or badmouth the father.
Right.
And then there's the support system. If the grandparents don't play a part, and which I was blessed that my mother and father played a part in my daughter's upbringing.
Right.
So that was good. So it can be real difficult and challenging. But while I was away, I used to write my daughter a letter once a week. I mean, I was determined to keep the lines of communication open. Her mother did an excellent job in allowing me to stay involved in my daughter's life. And it's just a blessing that me and my daughter connected on a whole different vibe. And like, if you were to hear us talk, you would never know that I've been incarcerated or that she was away from me for 22 years of her life.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's funny that when you mentioned about the letters, and I shared this with you before, when I was away, I used to write them all, pretty much weekly. And, even before he could read. And I didn't realize the impact of those letters until I came home and we were talking. He was like, I kept all your letters. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, it blew me away that, these letters meant so much. And I don't, like you said, I don't think brothers understand the significance of maintaining that communication with your children. And sometimes it can be difficult, but you got to, persevere, because at the end of the day, when you do come home, or when you do find yourself back into your child's life, whatever the situation may be, it's that communication is going to be the foundation of the relationship and or restoring the relationship.
Not a question.
And I think it's that type of consistency and effort. So like, as my dad mentioned, I'm 5 years old, like I got letters and cards, birthday cards and things, and people had to read them to me, and I didn't know what that meant. I got a 6-year-old right now. He wouldn't know what that meant, but seeing over time and being able to store these up and then becoming a man and then going back and looking at them, that helps with the relationship 100%. Because I can see that throughout the years, not just 1 month here or whatever, throughout the years, my dad understood what I needed and was making an effort to rebuild that bond, man. So it's good to see the parallels between our two stories, man.
Yeah.
And look at the beauty of what you said. You said something interesting. I used to send letters off to my daughter when she couldn't read. And when she got older, she said, Dad, I got the letters that you used to write me. She said, and I couldn't even read then. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is like, it gives them a self feeling of you care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's deep, and that goes a long, long way.
Yeah.
Because it showed them that you made the effort.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's like playing sports, and I was basketball, football star. You put an effort in, we lose to you. And we lost by 1 point or 3 points. But it was a good game. And at the end of the day, we looked at it like, man, we blew the game, but it was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
But you know that you put that effort in it.
Right.
And that's that effort of life, man, that you got to do with your offspring, man. And I believe that they will respect you, they will love you, they will honor you a whole lot more just by that.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, whatever you feel comfortable with, just going back to incident that led you to be incarcerated. Because I know you had, your daughter was already conceived, and
right.
What was the incident, and also your mindset at that time?
Man, my mindset probably was in the moon at that night. Yeah. I got in a situation where I felt like my back was against the wall, and I was facing, I thought I was facing life in prison, because this, unfortunately, I had been in jail prior for 2 bank robberies prior to that. And I was thinking about the 3 strikes. And I had only been home for 8 months for armed bank robbery. And when the situation happened, I just felt, I had nowhere to go.
Right.
And it's a split-second decision that you're making. You're sweating, your heart going 1,000 miles an hour. You know what I mean? And all I keep thinking about is career criminal, life in prison. And I said, man, I can't do life in prison, man.
Right.
Because I had just did the 8 years, and that kicked me upside the head.
Right.
I'm going to keep it 100.
Right.
And I just felt like, man, I would rather be dead. That's where my mind was at.
Right.
And before I know it, I realized I ended up grabbing a hostage. And they had the area on Northeast Boulevard blocked off. And I mean, it was crazy. It was like TV, man, really. I mean, you're looking at the police over the top of the cars with guns pointed at me and everything.
Man.
And I'm sitting here holding this hostage right where the U-Haul is, right in front of the U-Haul, Northeast Boulevard. And I'm sweating. And I'm like, man, this is it, man. Like, how did this come to this?
Right.
And before I realized it, I just came to the conclusion that I would rather be dead than spend the rest of my life in prison. And I opened up, fired on the police, and they hit me 5 times. And I never remember hitting the ground. I was in a coma for 2 months. They thought I was going to have a little brain damage. And woke up chained to a bed and saw the officers to the side, and didn't even know I was paralyzed. And it was crazy because the doctor came in and he introduced himself to me and everything, and he asked me did I know my name and everything, and I went through the motions, and he was said, can you feel this? And he was going on the side of the bed touching my leg, but I couldn't see it because there was a sheet on me.
Right.
And he got down to the bottom where my feet was, and he said, can you feel this? And then I said, no. He said, you can't feel it because you was paralyzed instantly. And at that moment, I really didn't have a reaction. And it didn't really hit me for a minute. But sooner or later, it came in, the reality, like, man, you paralyzed. And who thinks about ever being paralyzed?
Right.
I went from playing tennis, basketball, football, baseball, you name it, I played it. Lifting weights. I was about 220 when I got shot. I'm 6'3". And then find out that you paralyzed, man, that you depend on people to dress you, depend on people maybe to bathe you and take care of you. And you don't even know the physical aspects of being paralyzed and worrying about bed sores and the other complications that come along with it.
Right.
But it was through the mercy of the Creator that he gave me the strength. And I'll never forget this. I'm sitting in the hospital and my daughter's mother sent me mail. And they actually did something for the first time. They were actually bringing my mail from Gander Hill because when I got shot, Gander Hill used to be the holding facility for federal inmates until FDC opened up in Philadelphia. And I never forget it. The corporal came and saw me and said, I've never done this before. He said, you got an abundance of mail at the prison. He said, so we're going to allow the officers to bring your mail in and we're going to let you send mail out, which was a beautiful thing.
Right.
And I got an envelope from my daughter's mother. I never forget it. And I give her mad props. And it was a sonogram of my daughter. And when I looked at it, man, I think I had tears in my eyes, right? Because I could see me in her. And at that moment is when I realized that I had to stop having self-pity for myself, that I had to stop feeling sorry for myself. And I realized that I had to be strong, not just for myself, but my unborn daughter.
Right.
And I made a conscious effort from that point on, man, to get myself together and do everything within my power to be the best person and to deal with these set of circumstances that I could, man.
Wow.
That's heavy.
That is heavy. So, I mean, have you had these type of conversations with your daughter? Does
All
she
the time.
understand
My daughter understands everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we done went from the bottom to the top, man, about my whole life. And she just looked at me, she said, Daddy, you was off the chain.
Yeah.
And I look at her and say, yeah, your pop was off,
Right.
But it's ironic. Just this past Thursday, I graduated from a program, a reentry program.
Okay, congratulations.
Project New Start,
Congrats.
thank you. And my daughter sent me a text, and she says, man, I'm really proud of everything that you've accomplished since you've been home. You said you was going to do this, and you've doing that. She said, I'm really proud of you. And it just made me feel so good. And the best is yet to come, of course.
Right.
But I guess every man wants to be seen in a favorable light with his child.
Yeah.
Of course.
We should want to be that way. And unfortunately, it's not in every household like that, and every man doesn't think that way. But, there's a saying, you always want your child to be better than you were.
Right.
So I'm doing everything to show my daughter that even though my circumstances was crazy at best, it wasn't the end. And I'm strong enough to make a whole new life for myself.
Right.
And hoping that she can see that and want to have the best for herself, man.
Right. Right.
So you said you served 23, right?
Yes.
While you were down, how did your relationship evolve with your father? I know you said after you come home, you guys have been closer than ever.
Yes.
But what did that transformation look like while you were away?
My father is from North Carolina, so he's old school. So they kind of see things different, the way they show love, because it was like 12 of them in my father's household. They were poor. So I didn't understand the dynamics of that until years later that I realized that my pop really didn't know how to show love because it really wasn't shown to him.
Yeah.
Right.
We're creatures of society. We learn from our environments.
Absolutely.
And it's a good and a bad because, like, if you're in a good household, then you get the good qualities. But if you're in a dysfunctional household, you get some of those dysfunctional qualities also.
Right.
And you hope that you can see it. You hope that you can break them down and rid yourself of them. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't. They latch on to them. And with my father being away, I think the respect of me handling my time in prison, because I started off in one of the hardest prisons in the United States, Florence, Colorado,
Okay.
USP.
Yeah.
And I did 3 years out there and then went to another USP, USP Allenwood. And I mean, it was serious, man. I'm talking about dudes getting killed, dudes getting stabbed, dudes getting raped. Every gang that you can name was out there. And imagine this. It was the disciplinary for all the United States penitentiaries in the United States. And they sent me out there in a wheelchair. And I never forget this. I went to my case manager when I got there. I said, man, I think y'all got me in the wrong spot. She said, Mr. Foreman, I read your jacket. We don't have you in the wrong spot. And that allowed me to know that no matter what you feel about your circumstances, what's on paper is all that counts.
Yeah.
You know? And that's how they view you.
Yeah. So, I want to go. No. First of all, talking about your father and upbringing, I can remember with my own dad. My dad's 80, be 81, God willing, his birthday, and come from the country, come from the South, farming and all that. And it took me a while, you know what I mean, to realize, like, as far as like our connection, he was just kind of laid back, stoic. He didn't show a whole lot of emotions. He didn't the hugs and, like you said, the kissing and stuff like that. Right. He didn't do. And I had to look back at his relationship with my own grandfather. And I can remember when I was a kid and we would go down and visit and they would shake hands. And I talk about this in Out of the Ashes, and I talk about it with my son. And it's like, I never understood why they never even hugged or, you know what I mean, just showed some type of, you know what I mean, some type of affection towards one another, man. And that was one of the things, like you said, with your own father, I had to cut my dad some slack. And it's like, I was probably like 31, 32 before I remember my dad telling me that he loved me. You know what I mean? And now we you know what I mean, we exchange that on a regular, you know what I mean? And that was a special thing for me, man. You know what I mean? Just coming to that understanding of, you know what I mean, the dynamic of my father and my grandfather's relationship, it just put me in a different space, man. Again, it just being able to cut him some slack and being able to meet him where he was at, man. But I had another question I wanted to ask. Want to go back again, you know, looking at the East Side. What did fatherhood look like when you were growing up? As far as, you know, I mean, were there a lot of fathers around? Were they showing love to their children? Because it's a myth out that black men don't love their children.
I disagree with that. Growing up, like I said, I was born in 1963, so in the 70s and things of that nature. I remember a lot of the fathers being present in the household. I know a lot of fathers who played a major part in the household. Right. I know fathers when I used to come in there, hey, Mr. Price, you know what I mean? How you doing, Orlando? How's your mother? So the fathers were present, and the fathers were sweeping the dirt and the trash from in front of the houses, washing cars, keeping the houses clean and things of that nature. I just think as time went on and drugs and the society culture changed, the women that started having children were a little younger. So now you're dealing with younger women and younger men having kids. So now they don't know what fatherhood is. They don't know what motherhood is. And I think this is where that bridge fell apart for our community. Right. You know what I mean? Because and then that crack era came in and destroyed a whole generation and it's still having an effect, ripple effect to the day. Yeah. Because those kids are now becoming some parents. Yeah. And they have issues, you know what I mean? So I just remember the community's been a lot stronger. Yeah. We had a lot more programs, YMCA, you go West Side, you go Brown's Boys Club, you go Jackson Street Boys Club. We had a lot of outlets, and now these outlets that the kids don't have no more. Right. So now what do? They come home, they hanging on corners. Right. They got the cell phones in their hand, and they on corners. And maybe some of them don't mean no harm. Right. But they don't want to be in the house. Right. And like for us growing up, man, you was always out in the street. Yeah. You wasn't, and a lot of kids stay in the house playing videos also now, but we was always out in the street. Yeah. You know, but I just think that the evolution of society kind of changed things as far as the men being men in the communities and the houses. And like I said, it's unfortunate for us because we've taken a drastic hit. Right. And you can see it. So now the young kids don't understand about respect or having mannerisms or opening the door for the older lady. You know, when I was growing up, you see somebody's mom come with a bag of food, you running, hell, let me help you, Miss Ann. Right. Oh, how you doing, man? You know what I mean? Or I used to wash steps back in the day. Right. You know what I mean? And you just don't see that no more. I mean, the older people kind of a little afraid of the young kids. That was your hustle? Yeah, I used to go up the block on 10th Street. Because when I was born, I lived on 10th Street, East 10th Street. Mm-hmm. And we used to have these like real heavy stone steps back then. Yeah. So I got the Comet, the buckets, and that was my hustle. I used to wash steps. And no question, I think they give me like 50 cents or something like that back then. But 50 cents was a lot of money back then.
Right.
You can do big things with 50 cents back then. Now you get 50 cents, you might throw it out the window.
Right. Yeah.
So with you and your father getting closer since you've been home, what are some things that you found out about your dad that you wish you had known when you were younger?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I actually don't know if I know that answer, to be honest. But what I will say is that I can see through my pop's actions and the way he interacts with me that he loves me, that he's always loved me.
Right.
And I think his level for respect has grown immensely for me because he knows that I'm a man.
Right.
And he always knows. And one thing he always says, he said, boy, you're strong. You know, he said, tell me that. We used to talk on the phone. He said, boy, you're strong. Because I got 2 other brothers, younger brothers, and they're not that young, but he used to always tell me that. And I was like, well, I'm strong, but I didn't really see the science in it. But he saw it. Now, when I talk with my father, and we love all sports and things, he's a Boston Celtics fan and a Washington Redskins fan. I can't stand him. But the beauty is that it's like them unspoken words that you feel the vibe. You know, some things in life that you can feel without a word being said. It's like looking at your wife or your girlfriend. You just look in her eyes and you just know that she loves you and you love her back.
Yeah.
No words being said.
Right.
Or when she smiles at you, as my girlfriend does now.
Right.
When she's going to kill me calling the girlfriend my fiance.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll kill me.
Congratulations.
But anyway,
man.
thank you. And it's just like I just see it with my father when we hug. And now it kills me because now I look at my father. My father's 78. And my father used to be real built. He was like 6'1", 225, 230. And I look at my father and he's a shell of what he used to be. And he walks with a cane because he has a prosthetic leg now, unfortunately. And actually he just got diagnosed with having stage 3 cancer, but he's fighting and he's strong. And it's crazy. I saw my father cry for the first time when I went out to the hospital scene. And I kissed him on the side. But he's strong. So it's that unspoken love, that unspoken respect that I can feel and he feels between us. And I believe that just keeps bringing us closer and closer and closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the answer to things.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer.
So I can that was a lot right there.
Yeah, it's a little rough for me. I'm not gonna lie, man, you know, because I'm used to seeing my father being this big man.
Yeah.
And like when I went out the hospital, I'm in the halfway house, so I had to put a special pass in, and it was crazy. The day I go out there, my brother was out there, so he had just came there. So when I'm coming through the door, I see my brother, Unsell, and I look. He said, "Man, it's crazy. We was just talking about you. Here he is, Dad." And I roll up and see him, and then he got the tubes and things. And when I hugged him, he just started crying.
Yeah.
But it was because he saw me.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. We took some pictures and stuff in there. And he just told me, he said, take care of your mom, man. And I'm like, I said, you're going to be all right. But I sensed what he was saying to me. And I just think it's a relief that I'm home. Because like I said, I just came home in July.
Yeah.
And it's a relief. And like I said, man, every time that we see each other and hug each other, man, it's just like something that I didn't experience when I was young.
Yeah.
And I wanted that now that I can see it as an older person. And I used to wonder why my father really didn't hug me. I mean, he took me to places. We won a few games and here and there. But for me, and I will honestly say my father wasn't as hands-on as I would liked him ever been. And for whatever reasons he wasn't, who knows?
Right.
But I see it now.
Yeah.
And I respect it now. And one thing about life, we can't keep harboring ill feelings about people, man.
Nah.
Especially our loved ones. Because we never know what was going on in their mind at that time.
Yeah.
All we can do is take what we can take from them now and try to make the best of life. Because, man, life ain't promised.
Yeah.
And it's precious, man.
You know, brother, it's amazing, man, how much our lives, you know, I mean, you got me about 10 years, but it's amazing how much our lives parallel. Because I can remember, so I've been home going on 11 years now, right? And my mother, she was sick. She was a lot worse off than I knew, you know what I mean, being away. I hadn't seen her for a few years. And, you know, I came home and I remember seeing her and she could barely walk down the steps. And it was a lot, man. And my mom was on oxygen and tubes and all this stuff, man. And unfortunately, but you know, God's will is what it is. She passed away in 2014. And But the thing that gives me solace, that gives me peace, is knowing that I came home and I showed my mother the man that she had raised me to be.
True.
You know what I mean? And I was there for her, and you know what I mean, to support her, taking her to you know what I mean, to her appointments and going to the doctors, and when she was in the hospital, visiting her and all that stuff like that. And it was a painful thing, you know what I mean, losing my mother, but it was a blessing in just being able to be, and you know what I mean, she was just so grateful for me to be there and kind of pick up some of that weight and to help them along. You know what I mean, my father was, you know what I mean, older. And on the flip side of that is when my mother passed, my father and I, because our relationship was mended, you know what I mean, we were able to help each other through that time in the process, man. So I just want to, you know what I mean, encourage you with that, man. You know, you home, you know what I mean, you on the right path, man, and you know what I mean, just be there how you can, man, for your mother and your father, man.
Question.
No, without a doubt, you know what I mean, your children. I'm just speaking about the elders right now, and just, you know what I mean, do what you can, brother, and it's gonna be enough. It's gonna be enough because we can't, you know what I mean, we can't go back. You know what I mean, all the time we had in penitentiary or running in the streets or whatever, can't go back. But what you got right now is sufficient, man, and just go ahead and live through that, man, and just be, you know what I mean, be the best man, the best son you can be, man, and you'll have peace with that, brother. I believe so.
Appreciate you saying that, Brother Cooley, and it's funny you should say that because Thursday at my graduation, with the exception of me graduating high school, my mother sent me a text and said, I've never been more proud of you. Now I'm graduating. Now understand this. I'm graduating a re-entry program. I'm not graduating from Harvard University or Howard University, from college or from MIT or anything of that nature. I'm graduating from a program that's trying to structure my life and allow me to make better decisions and to have a better life.
Right.
And my mother told me that that's the most proud. I was proud of you more than any other time. And it blew me away.
Wow.
And I'm looking at my mother with a cane, and she's sitting next to my girlfriend. I mean, my fiance. Here I am again.
Oh, man.
And it just blew me away because, like you said, Brother Cooley, she's happy that I'm home.
Yeah.
Because we don't realize the burden, we don't realize the pain, the frustration, the embarrassment that we put on our families when we go to prison.
Yep.
Now, me, being an old bank robber, I done had streets blocked down on 9th Street where the feds is all up in the house with search warrants and everything. Can you imagine what stigma my mother went through?
Yeah.
Are you serious, man? Did I put my parents through that?
Yeah.
But no matter what, my mother always said, you always going to be my son, and I love you. I don't care what you did.
Right.
And that's that genuine mother's love, man.
Yeah.
And for those kids, them young kids that's out there that don't have that, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. You know what I mean? And for those parents who struggle to show it, don't be afraid to show it.
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, we all need each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How often do you and your daughter communicate now?
Usually almost every other day, if not every day. There's been a couple of times where we haven't, with text or talk. If I don't talk to her, I text her.
Yeah.
And I try to text her every day. And it's crazy because technology just makes it so much easier now. Imagine me come home with 23 years now and the way the phones are now.
Yeah.
I mean, you can FaceTime and see people now. It's just blowing me all the way. And I'm still kind of green with the phones, but it's a beautiful experience to see how things have evolved.
Yeah.
And it just makes things that much easier, so there is no excuse. You know what I mean? I think that's what it took away, the excuse of not being able to do something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me and Nakara, my daughter's name is Nakara. We talk and we have some serious conversations, just like you and your father have.
Yeah.
Gentrification and different things of that nature. And she's so sharp and intelligent. I love her for it. And she's her own person.
Yeah.
She definitely has part of my personality and her mother's personality, but she's her own person. And she's trying to make a difference in a lot of different things herself. So I'm proud of her.
Cool, man.
That's dope. Yeah.
Oh, what are some of the things you look forward to doing with her now that you're home and you're getting yourself established?
Well, like Keaton, good thing you said that. I'm trying to get my feet on the ground, of course, and being involved in the community and, of course, working. And I believe that my hope is to be able to bring my daughter on board with some of my programs.
Okay.
She's in the art, and actually she was going to school for art therapy they use art as a way of helping kids with mental illness and deal with things of that nature. That's what she likes to do. And she's a good people's person too. She's active in the community with the hip hop and everything else, unspoken words and poetry. She's into all that type of thing.
Nice.
And she's an artist herself. So I'm trying to get myself together where I can help her get her platform a little bit more established, because I believe that she hasn't reached her peak yet. And there's a lot that she can achieve, and I just think she needs the proper guidance and the help. And that's my goal, to have my daughter on that type of level.
Nice, man.
Yeah, that's nice. So let me ask you this: what's the difference? What's the difference between your relationship with your daughter and my relationship with my son? And then, you know, I'm sure we both know brothers and sisters who've come home and just aren't able to make that connection. What do you think it is that allows for, you know, I mean, you and I to have these relationships?
I just think that you and I was blessed with the wherewithal to want to make that effort, Cooley. I mean, we didn't give up, you know what I mean? And that love that you have for your son, and just like I have for my daughter, it was that deciding factor saying I got to do all I can do to try to bridge that gap that's there. And unfortunately for some brothers and sisters, that gap is there and they just don't know how to try to mend it.
Right.
Or they don't put enough effort into it.
Right.
And, you know, effort's a two-way street, but we can't put it on the kids. We gotta take that as our responsibility. And however they react to it, we deal with it. But we as the adults, men and women, must be proactive in trying to keep that bond, proactive in trying to keep them lines of communication open. No matter if you got to write with crayons, you write with crayons. Yeah. Whether you got to write with a pencil, you write with a pencil. Whether you can talk, because maybe some people can't afford to make these calls, you know, because the calls are kind of expensive in some of these places. You know, because I know in the Feds, like for 3 minutes, it was like $3.80. You know what I mean? And for 15 minutes. And the point is, no matter how you have to communicate with your daughter, make the effort, because effort plays a major part.
Right.
You know, and so I tell all the men out there and the women, you know, don't leave excuses behind.
Right.
Because those kids in there is to be born. You brought them into the world. They're your responsibility. That's the key word about being a man and woman: responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of us run from responsibility, or maybe we don't know what responsibility is. I don't know. But I know the ones that are conscious try to make that effort.
That's right. You got anything?
No, I think you answered all of my questions, man.
So what any parting words that you would say to, you know what I mean, a man or a woman who's trying to reconnect with their child, whether, you know what I mean, it's due to separation due to incarceration, mental illness, substance abuse, or whatever. And then what would you say to what suggestion would you give to a child that has not had that parent in their life?
The first thing I would say is, no matter what your circumstances are, do the best that you can to bridge the gap of communication between your parents, or if you're a child, to your parents. Don't be afraid to have that conversation. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. Don't be afraid to apologize. Right. We have to learn to forgive each other. And sometimes as a child, you don't know what your parents are going through, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's mental illness, or incarceration, that causes that separation between the two of you. So give them the opportunity to at least explain their position or explain the circumstances of why they felt like things happen the way they happen. The children, it's kind of hard for them because when you're young, you want what you want, and that's one of those type of things. But try not to be so hard on your parents, because at the end of the day, you should love your parents, good or bad. And they're going to be the only parents that you have.
Right.
And as you get older, then you'll realize this, and you'll start seeing things, you'll start visualizing, you'll start better understanding the essence of father-child, mother-child, and then you understand that they're not perfect. And that's what we got to remember. Our parents aren't perfect. You know, there is no manual of how to be the best parent. It's a hands-on job. It's a job of experience. It's a job of circumstances. It's a job of things happening at the right time. And you can just only hope that your parents do good by you. But at the same time, we got to do good by our parents.
Right.
You know, that's the key. It's a two-way street. And just for the brothers incarcerated, man, do everything that you can possibly do to mend that gap for the brothers who are on the street, who aren't taking care of their children the way they should. Brothers, look in the mirror and tell me if you're proud of yourselves. Because if you're proud of yourself not taking care of your child, then something is wrong with that image that you're seeing, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. So, again, we want to thank you, Orlando, for coming on. Definitely some rich conversation, brother. We really appreciate you coming out, man.
The pleasure was mine being invited to this forum, and I just hope that others want to get involved, and we need other voices. We need other men. We need other women, because, like, this is a community thing. It's not a one-person thing or individual thing. It's a community thing, and our problem is large. Our problem is out of control.
Yeah.
And we need as much help as we can possibly get.
Absolutely, man. So, again, just signing off. This is Coley Harris.
And Amar Melton.
And thank you for listening to Missing Dad.